you're watching this in bed, good. Dim the lights if you haven't already. You can let the room stay dim. Tonight, you're going to spend a day inside the most watched, most magnificent, most carefully ordered building in England. And by the end of it, you are going to be very, very ready to sleep. Let's begin. You wake up. It is dark. Not the comfortable dark of a quiet room. The heavy dark of a palace that does not sleep so much as pause. You are awake before the bell. You are always awake before the bell. That is in itself a kind of attention. It is 1533. You are in the Palace of Whitehall, and you are alive. That last part is worth noting. In this palace, in this year, getting through the day is not a passive thing. It requires care. It requires the particular skill of knowing which way the wind is blowing before anyone has said anything aloud. You have developed this skill. You have had to. The king is Henry VIII, King of England, Lord of Ireland, soon to be declared supreme head of the Church of England, a man who has already put aside one queen, a man who is in the process of making another, a man whose moods move through the palace like weather. You feel them before they arrive. The particular drop in temperature, the way the senior gentlemen begin to walk a little faster. You serve in this palace, not at the highest level, not a lord, not a knight, not one of the men who stand at the king's shoulder while he eats, but close enough to see things, close enough to hear things, close enough to feel the temperature of this building change over the course of a single morning as the word passes from corridor to corridor that the king is in a good mood or he is not. Close enough to understand on most mornings that the safest position in this building is the one that is useful and unremarkable in equal measure. You are useful. You intend to remain unremarkable. You breathe. The palace breathes around you. It is 1533. You are alive. Let's keep it ordinary. The palace is not one building. It is many buildings, connected by corridors and galleries and covered walkways and open courtyards, the whole complex spreading along the north bank of the Thames in a way that seems less designed than accumulated, as if rooms were added one by one over generations, each new one pressing up against the last, the whole thing growing organically, like a city growing inside a city. You know most of it. After 6 years, you know the routes that matter, the route from your room to the Great Hall, the route from the Great Hall to the kitchens, the route from the kitchens to the outer buildings where the stores are kept, the route through the gallery with the long windows that overlook the river. This one is not on any official path you have been given, but it is the most direct way from the linen store to the section where the senior officials have their offices, and you have walked it often enough that the guards at either end no longer question you. Here is the thing about knowledge of routes in a palace. It is a form of currency. A person who knows how to get from one part of the palace to another without being seen, or who knows which passages connect which wings, has a small power that is not quite power but is close. You have this. You have accumulated it slowly. The palace also has a sound, its own particular acoustic. Stone corridors carry voices in strange ways. A conversation at the far end of a long hall is sometimes more audible than one taking place around a corner. You have heard things in these corridors that you are not meant to hear, not because you are listening at doors, simply because you are walking at the wrong moment or the right one, depending on how you look at it. and because a stone carries what is spoken into it, without judgment, without selection, everything equally. The stone holds what is spoken into it. The conversations of 100 years absorbed into these walls, the arguments and the whispers and the private griefs, you are adding to it now. Your footsteps, your breath, the particular sound of you moving through this building long after you have moved on. Your room is small, smaller than you once thought you deserved, larger than most people in England will ever sleep in. This is the particular paradox of palace life. You are housed, fed, clothed, and kept, all at the crown's expense. And in exchange, you are never truly alone, never truly free, and never more than one wrong word away from losing everything you have. In simpler terms, everything you have can be taken. The room is at the end of a long corridor on the upper floor of a secondary wing. Stone walls, plastered and painted in a faded ochre. A single window, small, with thick glass that distorts the view of the courtyard below into something impressionistic. Shapes and movement, not details. A bed, which is the most significant thing in the room, not because it is luxurious. It is not particularly luxurious, but because having a bed at all, a private bed in a private room, marks you as a person of a certain standing within this building. The servants of lower rank sleep in shared rooms, on pallets, sometimes 2 or 3 to a space. You have your own pallet, you have your own door. These things matter here. Everything here means something. Every object, every room, every distance from the king's own chambers, it all maps onto the invisible hierarchy that governs every moment of palace life. You know your position in this map precisely. You have spent years learning it. The bed is narrow, but it has a wool mattress and a blanket that is thick enough for winter. It is summer now, just past midsummer, and the blanket is pushed to one side. The air in the room is close. The palace generates its own heat. Hundreds of bodies, dozens of fires, the great kitchens running day and night below. And in summer, this heat collects in the upper rooms and does not leave. You lie still. Outside your door, the corridor is not silent. It is never silent. There are always footsteps somewhere, always a voice, too far away to make out words, too present to ignore. The palace is a building in which approximately 1,000 people live and work, and it does not fully stop at any hour. You have learned to sleep inside this noise, the way a sailor learns to sleep on a moving ship, not despite the motion, inside it. You breathe, the palace breathes. The king is somewhere in this building, sleeping or not sleeping. The vast machinery of his court arranged around him like rings around a stone dropped in water. You are in the outer rings, safe, mostly. You breathe. The thick glass of the window holds the faintest light of early morning, just barely, just enough to know that night is thinning. You lie still. There's a small chest at the foot of the bed. Your clothes for today are already laid out. You set them out last night, as you do every night, because the mornings in a royal palace move quickly, and there is no time for the small confusion of a man who cannot find his collar in the dark. Your livery is there, the Tudor colors, green and white. You have worn these colors for 6 years now. They are as familiar as your own skin, and they carry the same dual meaning that skin carries in a court like this. They announce who you are, and they remind you that who you are is contingent, borrowed, dependent on the continuing favor of a man you may not see for days at a time. The collar is on the chest. The day is almost here. There is a sound the palace makes in the hour before dawn, a particular sound, different from its sounds at any other hour. Not the sounds of operation, those begin with the bell. Not the sounds of deep night, those are minimal, just the watch and the building. This is the sound of the palace in transition, the moment when the night shift and the day shift overlap. Two kitchen fires being stoked, one pair of footsteps ending its route and another beginning. A single voice, somewhere distant, giving an instruction. You have come to know this sound over 6 years. It is not a beautiful sound. It is not a dramatic sound, but it is yours. It belongs to the hour that belongs to you, the hour before the bell, before the day begins in earnest, before you are required to be anything for anyone. In this hour, you can simply lie in the dark and be a person who exists, not a servant, not a member of a household, not a body in a livery that announces its function and its allegiance, just a person, breathing in a small room, in a large palace, in the year 1533. The clothes here mean everything, not in the way that a vain person means it, not vanity, something more functional. The Tudor court is, among other things, a visual system, a map made of cloth. Walk through the palace, and you can read the hierarchy of it without asking a single question. The color, the fabric, the cut, the amount of gold or silver thread in the trim, the presence or absence of fur. Each of these elements is a sentence in a language that everyone here reads fluently. Think of it as the 16th century's version of a staff badge and a lanyard, except the consequences of wearing the wrong one are considerably worse. Your livery is green and white. The Tudor colors, they announce that you belong to the household of the king, that you are under his protection, that you have been placed in this building by an act of his will, however distant and impersonal. This livery has kept you safe in moments when being unclear about your affiliation might have been dangerous. You have had moments like that, not many, but the city outside this palace is not always kind to people who cannot immediately demonstrate where they belong. The livery says where you belong. Above your station, the clothes become richer. The senior gentleman who oversees your section wears a doublet of dark wool with silver buttons. The privy chamber gentlemen wear better cloth still, and above them, at the very apex, in rooms you have been in only 3 times, the king's own clothing is something that requires a different vocabulary entirely. Not cloth exactly. Cloth transformed. Cloth that has been worked by dozens of hands over months until it is no longer simply material, but a statement, a declaration. The declaration of a man who intends to be the most powerful person in any room he enters. He always is. You breathe. You straighten your collar. You are presentable. That is enough. The bell rings, not loudly, not the great bells of the chapel, which will come later, just a small bell somewhere in the corridor, the sound that moves through the palace like a ripple, each room it passes waking the person inside. You are already awake. You rise. You dress in the particular sequence that palace life requires. First the shirt, linen, washed the day before yesterday, still slightly stiff. Then the hose carefully, then the doublet, the Tudor green, with a small repair at the left cuff that you made yourself 3 weeks ago, and that is visible only if you are looking for it. Then the collar, which is white linen and must be perfectly straight. The collar matters. Everything here matters. but the collar is one of the visible things, one of the things a senior official might notice in the first half second of seeing you, and a crooked collar announces a person who did not pay attention. A person who did not pay attention is a person who might be moved down the list when assignments are given. You straighten it by touch. You have done this enough times that your hands know what straight feels like. You open your door. The corridor is already moving. 4 other men in livery walking with the slightly compressed urgency of people who are not quite running, but are not quite walking either. You fall into step. The morning in a royal palace has its own grammar. A set of movements, a set of routes, a set of appearances at specific places at specific times, all flowing toward the great tidal moment of the king's morning, the rising, the robing, the emergence from his private chambers into the world of his court. Most of you will not see this directly. The king's body is attended by the men of the privy chamber, the most senior gentlemen, the ones who hold the towel, the ones who hand him his shirt, the ones whose proximity to the royal person is measured in inches and is itself a form of power. You are not one of them. But the ripple of the king's morning reaches every corner of this building. When he rises, the whole palace organizes itself around that fact. You go to your post. The great hall is being prepared. Trestle tables set with a speed and precision that speaks of people who have done this so many times, it requires no thought. The smell of fresh rushes on the floor. The rushes are changed regularly, weekly in the areas the king might walk, less regularly in the outer rooms. In the outer rooms, the rushes carry everything that has been dropped on them since last they were changed. Food scraps, candle wax, the general residue of life lived at close quarters. You are used to the smell. Everyone here is used to it. You go where you are needed. You arrive exactly on time. Not early, which reads as anxious. Not late, which reads as careless. On time. This calibration is something you learned in your first year here and have practiced every day since. The morning also has a smell, a specific layered smell that you have come to associate with the beginning of each day. First, the cold. The stone corridors hold the night's chill long after the air outside has begun to warm. Your breath makes a small visible cloud when you step out of your room. Not cold enough to be unpleasant, just the particular edge of an early morning in a building where the warmth is always somewhere else, always a corridor away. Then the fires. As you descend toward the kitchens and the great hall, the first warmth arrives. The big fires have been burning since before first light. The smell of wood smoke is clean and thick and moves through the cold air like something intentional. Then the food. The bread is baked in the morning, every morning. The smell of it rises through the passages and reaches you before you have eaten anything, before the ale, before the herring. Just the smell of bread and the particular promise that bread carries, that the day is beginning, that you are alive to begin it, that there is food and warmth and work to be done. These are not small things. You breathe. There is a chaplain. There are several in a palace this size, but the one whose path crosses yours regularly is a small, precise man who seems to have achieved a state of calm that the rest of the palace conspicuously lacks. He moves through the corridors at the same speed regardless of what is happening around him. When others are walking quickly, he walks at his pace. When others are standing still, he walks at his pace. He nods at you when you pass. You nod back. This exchange has happened perhaps 200 times. It has never expanded into conversation. You find this somehow restful. The chapel services are at fixed hours. You attend the ones you are required to attend. The others you attend when you can. Not from deep piety, exactly, though you are not impious. But the chapel is one of the few places in the palace where the sound is controlled, where the voices are directed, shaped, sent in a particular direction, with a particular intention. The choir. The choir is the thing you go for if you are honest. A group of 6 men and 4 boys, their voices arranged in harmonies that seem in the stone space of the chapel to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You stand in the back when you attend. You listen. You let the sound do what it does, which is something you cannot quite name, something that loosens the thing you carry, the continuous low-level vigilance, the watching, the calibration. In the chapel, for the duration of the choir, you do not have to watch. You can just hear. Slow. Still. The chapel itself is worth describing for a moment. It is not the largest space in the palace, but it is perhaps the most deliberately beautiful. Stone walls with the particular warmth of stone that has been in a warm building for generations. High windows that filter the light into something softer than the direct light in the corridors. Carved wooden stalls where the singers stand. The smell of beeswax and incense, which is the smell of ceremony, the smell of the thing that is older than Henry and will be older than whatever comes after Henry. The Chapel Royal. Later, people will say that the music made here was some of the finest in Europe. You do not know this yet. You know only that on the mornings when the choir sings, something happens in your chest that does not have a name and does not need one. You attend when you can. You stand in the back. You listen. And for that brief time, the calculations stop. This palace has a history, not just the history of what happened here before you arrived, the history that is happening now, that you are part of. You understand this sometimes in a way that you cannot sustain for long before it becomes too large to hold. The things being decided in these rooms, the break with Rome, the dissolution of the monasteries that is beginning to be discussed in the King's Council, the question of succession, the question that has driven everything, that has shaped the last 7 years of this palace's life, that will shape the next 20. The king has no legitimate male heir. He has a daughter, Mary, by the first queen. He will have a child by Anne. The queen is with child now, and everyone in this palace knows it, though the confirmation has not been made formally. If the child is a boy, the succession is settled, and the extraordinary effort of the last 7 years has its justification. If the child is a girl, the question continues. People will argue about this year for centuries. The September will bring a daughter, Elizabeth, they will call her. But you do not know that yet. In this moment, in this summer, it is still uncertain. The portraits in the gallery, the king's face on the coins, the name on the proclamations that get read in the courtyard. You have been a witness to all of it, not a significant witness, not the kind whose name will be in the records, but a witness, a person who was here, who walked these corridors, who stood at the feast, who counted the napkins, who breathed this air. History is mostly made of people like you, the ones nobody writes down, the ones who held the torches that illuminated the rooms where the decisions were made. You breathe. You are here. That is enough. The kitchens are below, always running, always producing a warmth and a smell that rises through the floors of the palace like something alive. You pass near them in the morning on your road, and the heat from the kitchen passage hits you like a wall, a dense, fragrant, slightly overwhelming wall of roasting meat and wood smoke, and the particular smell of a dozen different things being cooked simultaneously. The king's kitchen is enormous. Not one kitchen, several. The privy kitchen for the king's personal food, the main kitchen for the household, the pastry kitchen, the confectionery, the boiling house, the scalding house, each one staffed with specialists who have specific jobs and who rarely overlap with the people in the kitchen beside them. There is a sergeant of the kitchen. There is a master cook. There are yeomen of the kitchen, grooms, children, a whole hierarchy of people whose purpose is the production of food on a scale that most people in England will never see and cannot easily imagine. In a single day, this kitchen will produce food for hundreds of people, not equal food. The quality of what you eat here depends entirely on your position. The king eats from gold plate. The high lords eat from silver. The gentlemen from pewter. The servants eat in the great hall from common vessels. You eat at a long table with 20 others a roughly your standing. No coffee, by the way. Nobody in Tudor England has coffee. Just weak ale at every meal, because the water in London is not reliably safe, and ale, even weak ale, is. This morning there is bread, already baked, dense and slightly warm. Still, there is the ale. There is a salted herring. There is a piece of hard cheese. You eat efficiently, not because you are in a hurry exactly, but because lingering over breakfast in a royal palace is the sort of thing that draws attention, and attention at the wrong moment in the wrong direction is something you have learned to avoid. You eat, you watch. The table is its own kind of intelligence gathering. Who is sitting next to whom? Who is conspicuously absent? Who is speaking in the lowered tone that means the conversation should not leave the table? This morning, 2 of the men down the table are speaking very quietly. You do not lean in. You do not look at them directly. You finish your bread and your herring and your ale. You rise. You go back to work. The kitchen smells follow you down the corridor. Wood smoke, fat in the fire, the yeast of the bread. The palace feeds itself continuously. You are fed, you are clothed, you are housed. The king's generosity keeps you. You do not forget this. The day continues. The bread this morning was fresh. There are worse things than fresh bread and a clear purpose. You think of this as you walk, you hold on to it. A small warmth among the larger ones. The king is never fully absent. Even when he hunts, even when he sleeps, even when you have not seen him in 3 days, he is present in a way that a large fire is present in a room even when you are not looking at it. You feel the heat. You orient yourself around it without thinking. He is 41 this year, still strong, still the horseman, still the figure whose entrance transforms any room he enters, but also already changed from what the older men here say he was in his youth. In his youth he was brilliant, they say, spoke multiple languages, played music, composed songs, danced. You have heard from a man who was here 20 years ago that the young Henry danced like a man who expected to be watched and was glad of it. not with vanity exactly, but with the pleasure of a person fully inhabiting their own body. Now he watches more than he dances. Now it is others who perform for him. And his watching is different from ordinary watching. When the king watches you, something happens. It is not comfortable. It is not exactly threatening. It is the particular sensation of being assessed by a person for whom the outcome of that assessment has real consequences. Not for him, for you. You have been in the room when he is, and you have felt it. The particular quality of attention that belongs to a man who has always had the power to end things. You do not think about this while you work. You cannot afford to. But it is there, in the background, in the way that the tower is there, across the river, simply present, informing things. You've seen men leave this place, not dramatically mostly. The dramatic departures happen, but they are rare. Most of the departures are quiet. A man is assigned elsewhere. A man is not reassigned when his current assignment ends. A man simply appears less and less frequently in the corridors until one day he is not there, and the space where he used to be closes over like water over stone. You have thought about what keeps a person here. The obvious things: competence, loyalty, being useful without being threatening. But there is something else, something harder to name. The people who last are the people who understand what the palace is, not what it pretends to be, not the version of itself that it presents in the painted portraits and the formal proclamations and the ceremonies conducted with absolute gravity, but what it actually is: a place full of people, people who want things, people who fear things, people who are trying to hold what they have and get a little more and not lose what they've built. The palace is a concentration of human wanting. The king's wanting at the center, everything else organized around it, but wanting all the way down to the man counting the napkins who wants to keep his room, to keep the collar straight, to be useful and unremarkable, to be here tomorrow and the day after. This wanting is not grand. It is not the wanting that gets written down, but it keeps the palace running, this wanting. It is the engine of everything. You want the simple things: the room, the work, the collar straight. Tomorrow, slow. The work today is ordinary. This is the best kind of day, an ordinary day. A day on which nothing happens that has not happened before. You have tasks. The tasks were given to you yesterday by the senior gentleman who oversees your section of the household. He gave them without looking at you directly, which is his habit. He gave them efficiently, which is also his habit. You wrote them on a small piece of paper that you keep folded in your doublet. You do not need to consult it, you remember. But having it written down means that if anyone asks, you can produce evidence that you were told to do what you are doing, and that is a small protection against the kind of misunderstanding that in a place like this can become a large problem very quickly. The first task is an inventory. A section of the linen store needs checking. Tablecloths, napkins, the long cloths that cover the trestle tables in the hall. They are counted against the list from last month. Some have been worn through. Some are missing, which happens, which always happens, which you note without particular surprise. You work through the store methodically, counting, marking. The linen smells of the lavender it is stored with, great dried bundles of it, placed between the stacked cloths to keep them from mildew and moths. The smell is clean, unexpectedly peaceful in a building that is rarely peaceful. You count, You mark. Outside this small room, the palace is at full operation. Footsteps in corridors, voices echoing from the great hall, the distant sound of horses in the yard below, someone arriving, someone departing, always someone arriving, always someone departing. A royal court is a thing in constant motion, and somewhere at its center, the king is moving too, from chamber to chamber, from business to pleasure, from the company of his counselors to the company of the woman who is to be his next queen, Anne Boleyn, Lady Anne, newly crowned. This is the thing that everyone knows, and most people do not say directly. The thing that has been making the palace different for years now. A tension that ran beneath everything. A question that no one could quite answer until last year, when the king finally made his decision and the old queen was gone and the new one was here. You count the napkins, 47, one short. You write it down. You move to the next shelf. The lavender is calm. The counting is calm. This is the work. It is not dramatic. It will not be remembered. But it holds the palace together, this kind of work, and the palace holds you, and so you hold the palace in your small way. You count, you mark, you move to the next shelf. The morning passes. In the afternoon, the second task begins. A message is to be carried to a senior official in another section of the palace. Not an important message, or so you have been told. But you have been in this building long enough to know that the importance of a message and the rank of the person delivering it are not always connected. Sometimes an unimportant message is carried by someone with a very good reason to deliver it personally. Sometimes the message is not the point. The message is the occasion. The occasion to pass through a certain corridor, to be seen in a certain room, to exchange a certain look with a certain person. You do not know if this is one of those times. You carry the message. You walk the route you have been given. You pass through the gallery with the paintings, long-faced men in dark clothes, their expressions uniformly serious. You pass the chapel where a priest is saying something in Latin to no one visible. You pass the door to the king's privy chamber, and here you slow, without meaning to, and then correct yourself and walk at a normal pace. 2 guards stand at that door. They watch you pass. They say nothing. You deliver the message to the correct person. He reads it. He nods. He says nothing. You return. You report that the message was delivered. The day continues. You breathe. The long afternoons of summer, when the king hunts and the court disperses into its various activities, and the palace is as close to relaxed as a palace ever gets. You have your tasks. But the tasks in the afternoon have a different quality to the morning tasks. The morning is urgency. The morning is the great machine of the royal household cranking itself into motion, each part engaging with each other part. The whole thing building momentum toward the day's main events. The afternoon is maintenance. Things that need doing but that do not need doing now. Checking, counting, the slow movement of information from one person to another. You move through the afternoon palace at a different pace. Slower, not slow, but with the particular cadence of a man who has satisfied his first obligations and is now working through the rest. The afternoon, if you are honest, is when you think. Not deep thinking, not the kind of thinking you would admit to if someone asked. Just the small, continuous running commentary of a person moving through a familiar space. You pass the door to the great chamber. You pass the corridor that leads to the king's apartments. You pass the little alcove where the broken candlestick from last week has still not been collected. Small things, ordinary things. The palace is enormous, but you have reduced it over 6 years to a set of familiar roots and familiar objects and familiar faces. This reduction is a form of safety. A person who sees the palace as enormous is a person who can be lost in it. A person who has learned its roots has in some small way made it theirs, not theirs in any ownership sense. Nothing here is yours, but theirs in the sense that a city becomes yours after you have walked its streets enough times. You know which cobblestones are loose. You know which doors stick. You know which corridor smells of damp when it rains, and which one catches the morning light. These things are not power, but they are yours. You breathe. The women of the court are a different kind of intelligence. You have learned this slowly and imperfectly, because you do not move in their world directly, but you observe. Lady Anne's ladies are around her constantly, a moving cluster of color and fabric, and the particular collective awareness of women who are attending to a very complicated situation. The situation is this: the woman they serve is about to become Queen of England. She has already, in practice, many of the properties of a queen, her own household, her own apartments, the ceremonial attention that flows toward whoever is closest to the king. She is newly crowned, but still new to the role. And new to the role means her position is still being watched. You see, the ladies understand this in the way they move through the palace, in the way they watch. They watch the way everyone in a royal court watches, with the specific attention of people who know that the world they are in can change very quickly. But there is an additional quality to it. The sense of a wager that has been placed and is still being resolved. They are waiting for the birth. Once the child is born, and if the child is a son, everything that is currently uncertain becomes, in theory, settled. In theory. In practice, in Tudor England, nothing is permanent. Everyone in this building knows this. The women know it especially well. In the afternoon, the king hunts. This is not unusual. The king hunts most days that the weather allows. He is an extraordinary horseman. Everyone says so, has been since he was a young man. And the hunt is one of the few places where the hierarchy of the palace becomes temporarily more fluid, where the king is in motion and everyone around him is in motion, and the formality of the court gives way to something faster and louder and more alive. You are not part of the hunt. That is also not unusual. The hunt is for the king's companions, his senior gentlemen, the lords who ride with him through the parks that adjoin the palace. You watch the departure from an upper window, the horses first, their breath visible in the morning chill. Though it is summer, the mornings still carry something cool before the day warms. Then the riders, the king at the center. He is large, not yet the enormous figure he will become in later years, but large, tall, wide-shouldered, with the particular physical authority of a man who has always been the largest person in any room. He rides the way you might expect a king to ride, as if the horse is glad to carry him. The hunting party moves out through the palace gate. The sound of hooves on stone fades. The courtyard is quieter. The palace exhales very slightly. This is the other thing about the king's absence. It creates a brief loosening. Not much, not long, but perceptible. The people left behind move with a fraction less tension in their shoulders. the conversations in. The corridors are a note or two less careful. You feel it too. A slight easing, like the loosening of a collar that has been too tight. You walk through the afternoon palace. The great hall is being cleaned, rushes raked, trestle tables wiped. In the gallery, 2 ladies of the court are sitting at embroidery, speaking in low voices. They do not acknowledge your passing. You do not expect them to. The social distance between a person of your standing and ladies of the Queen's household is not insurmountable, but it is wide enough that neither of you would cross it without occasion. You walk. You go about your work. In the courtyard below, a delivery is arriving. Barrels unloaded from a cart. Wine from somewhere, Burgundy perhaps, or the Rhine. The palace consumes wine at a rate that seems from outside impossible. From inside it seems like simple necessity. The palace drinks. The king drinks, as everyone drinks in this century. But a royal court also drinks for ceremony, for celebration, for the performance of hospitality. That is one of the primary functions of a king. A king who cannot feed and water his court is a king who is failing at a basic obligation. Henry does not fail at this. The barrels are rolled in. You watch from above. The afternoon moves. The light in the long corridor changes over the course of the afternoon. You know this because you walk this corridor often. At midday it is bright, the summer sun coming through the south-facing windows at an angle that illuminates the dust motes in the air, hundreds of them moving slowly in the still palace air. By mid-afternoon, the light has moved and the corridor is dimmer. By late afternoon, the western windows are lit with the particular amber of the declining sun, and the stone floor of the corridor holds this color like a pool holds water. You walk through it. The amber light, it touches your hands, your collar, the front of your doublet. And then you have passed. And the corridor is behind you, and you are somewhere else, somewhere less beautiful, but carrying for a moment the warmth of that light. You carry it. You breathe. The other men, the ones you work alongside. You have spent 6 years in the company of people you did not choose. This is one of the less discussed aspects of palace service. You did not select these people. They did not select you. You were placed together by the logic of the household's needs, and you have adapted to each other, and over time something is formed between you that is not quite friendship, but is not nothing. There is a man called Thomas, 2 doors down from you. He has been here longer than you. He knows things you don't know, and he tells you some of them, not from generosity exactly, but from the particular pleasure of being the person who knows. You accept this arrangement. It works for both of you. There is a man called William who is younger than you by 10 years and who has the slightly overwhelmed look of someone who has not yet fully understood where he has ended up. You were that person once. You remember it. You occasionally say a word to him that is the kind of word you needed someone to say to you in those first months. Not advice exactly, just orientation, just the small reassurance that the thing he is feeling is normal, that it gets easier, that the palace becomes familiar in time, that the watching becomes less exhausting when you know what to watch for. He nods when you say these things. He does not quite believe you yet. He will. And there are others, a dozen others whose names and habits and particular qualities you know in the way you know the building sounds, precisely intimately without having chosen to learn. These are your people, not your family, Not your friends exactly, your people, the ones you eat with, the ones you pass in the corridor, the ones you will work alongside tomorrow and the day after, the ones who will notice if you are absent. This is not nothing. In a city the size of London, in a building the size of this one, being noticed matters. You breathe. In the evening there is a feast, not every evening, but tonight, a visiting dignitary, a French ambassador, or so the rumor has been passing through the household since midday. When the rumor reaches you through two intermediaries, you begin mentally preparing for an evening that will be longer and more demanding than an ordinary one. The feasts of a royal palace are not merely meals. They are performances, theater on a scale that requires a cast of hundreds, a stage that is the great hall itself, and a script that is the elaborate ceremonial of Tudor court dining, who sits where, who serves whom, who stands and who is permitted to sit, in what order the dishes arrive, who is permitted to speak to the king and in what posture. You know your role in this. It is not a large role, but it is specific. You help with the preparation of the hall. The great trestle tables are set with the palace's best plate, not the king's own plate, which is beyond anything a visiting dignitary might expect even here, but the household plate, which is itself a demonstration of wealth and power, the silver winking in the candlelight, the long white tablecloths, so freshly starched, they seem to stand on their own. The candles, there are hundreds of candles tonight. Wax candles, not tallow. Wax candles smell clean and burn clean, and are expensive enough that their presence announces something about the host. Every candle in the great hall tonight is a small statement about the king's resources. You help light them, you move through the hall with a taper touching flame to wick, wick to flame, each small fire joining the growing light in the hall until the room is transformed. What was a large stone room is now something warm and amber and somehow soft, the light smoothing the edges of everything. You step back, you look at the hall. This is the part you allow yourself. This small pause before the guests arrive and the machinery of ceremony begins, just looking at what the palace can make of itself when it tries. It can make this, a room full of warm light, a table set for 100 people, silver that catches and returns the candlelight, the smell of roasting meat from below, rising through the floors, announcing before the first dish appears that tonight's food will be abundant. You breathe, then the doors open, and the hall fills, and it begins. The king arrives last, as the king always arrives last, the room assembling itself in anticipation, every person in it oriented toward the door through which he will come, the way plants orient toward the sun, unconsciously, completely. He enters. The room changes. You have seen this many times now. You never quite get used to it. He is a man who knows exactly what he is and what effect he produces. He sits. Everyone else sits. The feast begins. The dishes come in waves. This is how a Tudor feast works. Not all at once. Not the way a simple meal is served, where the food appears and you eat and it is done. A feast has removes. A first remove, a second, a third. Each remove a set of dishes that replaces the one before. Each one its own statement. The first remove tonight is the roasted meats, a whole swan presented with its neck curved, white feathers replaced after roasting, the bird made to look in death as it did in life. This is a technical achievement, and everyone who sees it understands it as such. It is a performance of skill. Behind the swan, a haunch of venison. Behind the venison, a parade of smaller dishes, larks and pastry, a fricassee of rabbit, a pie of some kind whose contents you cannot determine from where you stand. Each dish is carried by a server. Each server walks at the same pace, the same held posture, dish at shoulder height, eyes forward. This uniformity is also intentional. The servers are part of the visual composition of the feast. Their livery, matching yours, creates a moving pattern of green and white through the golden candlelit room. You watch this. You've watched it many times, and it still works on you, this deliberate beauty. The smell of the food is overwhelming in the best possible way. Fat and char and spice. The Tudor kitchen uses spice heavily, pepper and ginger and cinnamon and saffron, both for flavor and for what they signify. Spice is expensive. Spice comes from far away. Spice on the table is another declaration. The king eats well. The king can afford to eat well. You are in his house. You eat something tonight too, not the swan, not the gold plate, but good food, real food, more than you would have had anywhere else you might have gone in life. You eat, you stand at your post. The hall fills with sound, music from the gallery above, the low roar of 100 conversations happening simultaneously, the particular sound of a feast, silver on silver, laughter, the creak of the long benches under their weight of people. The feast continues. You are part of the machinery that makes this happen. That is enough. After the feast, the hall is a different place, not empty yet, but emptying. The king has risen, which signals the end, and in his wake, the room begins to dissolve. The guests follow. Then the higher servants. Then the servers begin to move quietly, beginning the work of clearing that will continue until the hall is ready for tomorrow. This is the part that happens after the performance, the part that the audience does not see. The hall, which was golden and warm and full an hour ago, is becoming itself again. A large stone room with trestle tables, the candles burning lower, the silver being collected and counted, the tablecloths folded and taken away. The rush is tracked with the passage of 100 pairs of feet. You have done this many times. The clearing after a feast. It requires a particular kind of attention, not the high alert of the feast itself, when everything must be perfect and visible, but a steady, methodical attention, everything returned to its place, everything counted, everything that needs to be cleaned, everything that needs to be stored, so that tomorrow the hall can be what it needs to be, so that the performance can happen again. You move through the clearing. The candles are lower now, the shadows longer, the room quieter. You breathe. The garden in the evening is the thing you come back to, not every evening. The garden is not always accessible, not always empty, not always in a state of light that makes it what it can be. But on the evenings when it is, when the day's work is done, and the sun is at that particular angle, and the air has cooled slightly, and the knot gardens are in their late summer abundance, on those evenings you allow yourself the small luxury of walking through it slowly. The hedges are waist high, boxwood and rosemary clipped tightly, the smell of them released by the day's warmth. The paths between them are gravel, and your footsteps in the gravel are one of the most private sounds you hear in this building. Your own weight, your own pace, your own direction. In the center of the main knot garden, there is a sundial, stone, old, the inscription around its base worn smooth. You have looked at it many times. You have never been able to fully make out what it says. Something in Latin, something about time. There are birds in the evening garden, starlings mostly, moving in their quick, certain way across the low hedges. Once a heron stood at the edge of the garden for a long time, very still, looking at nothing visible, and then lifted and was gone. You think of the heron sometimes, the particular quality of its stillness, the way it occupied that space completely, without performance, without awareness of being watched, then gone. You walk the garden paths, you breathe, boxwood, rosemary, warm stone, the evening light on the hedges, the sundial in the center, the palace behind you, its walls lit gold by the setting sun, its windows returning the light back like something generous. You breathe. There are things this palace teaches. You did not expect when you first arrived to be taught anything. You expected to work, to be useful, to survive. These things happened, but the teaching happened too. The first thing the palace teaches is observation, not the casual observation of a person who looks at things, the particular, constant, slightly exhausting observation of a person who lives in an environment where every detail carries meaning. The way a lord walks past you, slightly faster than usual, not making eye contact, tells you something. The way two men stop talking when you enter a room tells you something. The way the senior gentleman smiled at breakfast this morning and did not smile at dinner tells you something. You do not always know what these things mean, but you file them, you hold them, you wait for more information that helps them make sense. This is the second thing the palace teaches: patience. Not the passive patience of someone waiting for a bus. The active patience of a person who understands that information arrives on its own schedule, that forcing conclusions before the information is complete is how people make mistakes, and that in this building mistakes are not corrected, they are remembered. The third thing is silence, knowing when not to speak, knowing which questions not to ask, knowing that the most valuable things you know are valuable precisely because you have not shared them. You've heard things in this palace that would change the lives of people who don't know them. You will take most of these things to your grave, not from loyalty to any particular person, though you have loyalties, but because you understand, in the way that palace life teaches you, that information is a form of property. You do not give your property away carelessly. The fourth thing, the thing you did not expect. The palace teaches you beauty, not the beauty you thought it would teach. The silver and the silk and the painted ceilings, which are beautiful, which you see every day, which you have become so accustomed to that you stop seeing them. But smaller beauty. The way the light comes through the long windows in the afternoon and lies on the stone floor in long golden rectangles. The sound of the chapel choir warming up in the morning before the service, when the voices are searching for their harmony and the sound moves through the walls and reaches you as something almost too fragile to be in this heavy building. The garden in the evening in summer, the garden you pass on your way back from the outer buildings. It is laid out in the new fashion, knot gardens, geometric, the low hedges trimmed into patterns, not wild, very much not wild. But in the evening, when the light goes low in gold, the hedges cast long shadows, and the paths between them seem to lead somewhere, and you walk through it slowly if the hour allows, and you breathe it. Lavender, rosemary, the particular smell of warm stone in the late sun. The palace teaches you this, to find these moments, to hold them briefly, to let them be enough. The palace communicates in whispers. Not all communication, but the most important kind. The official communication of a royal palace is documented. Letters, proclamations, orders, the formal written record of decisions made and instructions issued. All of this exists. All of it is important. But the communication that actually shapes life in the palace is the other kind. The whisper in the corridor, the quiet word over supper, the look exchanged across a room that contains a meaning that cannot be spoken directly. You've become a good reader of these. You have had to. For instance, that when the senior gentleman rubs his left hand with his right thumb, a small habitual gesture, he is about to say something he is not entirely sure of. You know that when two particular lords' men always choose seats at opposite ends of the table, something happened between their masters that has not been resolved. You know that the rooms nearest the king's privy chamber are attended by people who are slightly more careful in everything they do, slightly more precise, slightly more on the surface of their behavior, the inner life more deeply buried. This is not knowledge that helps you in any specific way, but it is the knowledge that keeps you oriented, that keeps you knowing where you are in this building. Not just physically, in every way. You know where you are. The other thing you have learned, which is not a lesson exactly, but an understanding that arrived slowly over many years, is this. The palace will outlast you. It will outlast everyone currently in it. It will hold different people in different years and different decades, and those people will walk these same corridors and make these same calculations and develop these same small knowledges. They will know which guards nod at them. They will know which corridor catches the afternoon light. They will lie in rooms like yours and hear the night watch below and find it, oddly, reassuring. You are one in a long line of people who have been this person, who have served in this building invisibly, competently, without leaving a name in the records. This thought, when it comes to you, is not a sad thought. It is, if you are honest, a settling thought. You are part of something larger than your own particular tenure. You are part of the palace itself, not the palace of kings and queens whose names will be in the books. The other palace, the palace of the people who counted the napkins, and it will continue after you, as it continued before you. You breathe. The night watch is something you hear but rarely see. Two men, sometimes three, walking the outer perimeter of the palace grounds through the night. Their footsteps on the gravel paths, their voices occasionally exchanged briefly before they separate and continue their routes. They have been doing this every night for years, long before you arrived, long before most of the people currently in this palace arrived. The night watch exists because a royal palace is a place that must be protected, not just from outside, thieves, enemies, the various threats that a king accumulates simply by being powerful, but also from inside, from the things that could go wrong within these walls. Fire is the greatest fear. A palace full of candles and torches and kitchen fires and heating fires is a palace at constant low risk of the one thing that could unmake it in hours. The night watch checks for this, among other things. you have lain in your bed on many nights and listened to the pattern of their footsteps below. You find it oddly reassuring, not because you are afraid of what they are guarding against, but because it means someone is awake, someone is paying attention. In a building full of sleeping people, the night watch is the building's open eyes. You breathe, they pass below, footsteps on gravel, then quiet, then footsteps again, returning, back and forth, all night, while the palace sleeps, while you sleep. The palace is watched, you breathe. From the right window, at the right time, you can see the Thames, not clearly. The windows in your part of the palace face the courtyard, not the river. But from the gallery on the east side, the long gallery with the portraits, if you stand at the southernmost window and look at an angle, the river is there, wide and brown and always moving. The Thames is the road that connects this palace to the city. Barges on it constantly, day and night. Some carrying people, the wealthy, the official, those who need to move quickly and privately through London's complicated streets. Some carrying goods, barrels, crates, bales of cloth. Some carrying the things that must be moved quietly. The river is discreet. The river asks no questions. You have watched it from that window on the afternoons when your duties take you through the gallery. It is always the same and always different. The same brown water, the same south bank opposite, the same movement. But each day it is lit differently, the light on it changing with the hour and the season and the weather. Today in the late afternoon, it was almost silver, the cloud cover turning it bright without direction, a flat metallic brightness that made the barges on it look like cutouts. The tower is downstream, you can't see it from here, but you know it is there. The river connects them, this palace and that fortress, two stones in the same current. The barge that carries people from this place to that place uses the same water, the same brown and different river, moving, always moving. The shadow is always there. You do not dwell on it, but you are not unaware of it. This is what living in a Tudor palace is, the shadow, the knowledge that sits just below the surface of every ordinary day, the knowledge that the king's favor is real, and it is warm, and it sustains everyone around it, and that it can end, not gradually, not with warning. One season a man is at the king's right hand at every feast, is consulted on every matter, is spoken of as indispensable. The next season he is gone. Not dead sometimes just gone, dismissed, retired to a country estate, quietly removed from all the positions that had made him visible, but sometimes dead. The tower stands on the other side of the city. You have seen it from the river, its stone walls, its square towers, its particular quality of permanence that feels on certain days like a threat and on others like a simple fact of the landscape. Men who sat at this table have gone to the tower. You do not think about this often, but it is there. The way the cold is there on winter mornings, not always in your consciousness, but present, informing things. The court this year is more tense than last year. Last year it was uncertain. The question of the king's marriage still unresolved, everyone waiting, everyone adjusting their positions carefully in preparation for whatever came next. This year the answer has arrived. Catherine is gone. Anne is here. The old queen's supporters have been quietly separated from influence. New people have risen. Old alliances have shifted or frayed. There are men who were powerful 2 years ago who now Walk the corridors of this palace with the careful step of people who are not sure of the ground beneath them. You watch, you say nothing, you do your work. You are not powerful enough to fall far. This is one of the small mercies of your position. The very men who hold the great offices of state, the ones whose names everyone knows, whose faces are painted in the galleries of great houses, they are the ones who have the furthest to fall and who feel most keenly the vibration of the king's change in mood. You feel it too, but your distance from the center means you feel it late and distantly, like thunder far away, audible, not yet here. You breathe. The year 1533. You've lived in it for 7 months now. It is not like other years. Or perhaps it is, and every year contains this much change, and you only notice it now because you are older and more able to see it. Earlier this year, the king had his marriage to Catherine of Aragon annulled. By late spring, Anne Boleyn was crowned. In the warmer months, she became pregnant. This sequence of events from the outside seems fast. From inside the palace, from inside the year, it is felt both fast and impossibly slow. The years of waiting and maneuvering that preceded it compressed in retrospect, the final changes arriving in a rush. The palace is different now than it was 2 years ago. Different people in the important rooms, different loyalties rewarded, different ones quietly unrewarded. This is what change looks like from inside. Not dramatic, not all at once. Just different people in the corridors, different names said with different weights, the same building, holding different arrangements. You have been here through all of it. You have watched. You have said nothing. You have done your work. You are still here. This, in the year 1533, in the court of Henry VIII, is not nothing. You breathe. There is a name that moves through the palace in a way that has changed recently. Thomas More, Chancellor of England until last year, when he resigned. A man of great learning, great integrity, or great stubbornness, depending on who you ask. He is not here now, but his name still moves through these corridors, spoken quietly, spoken with the particular care that people use when talking about a man who has been in favor and is no longer. You do not know Thomas More. You have seen him once, years ago, walking through the gallery. A quiet man, moving carefully. You return to your work. You breathe. The year continues. The palace has different sounds at different hours. You know them all. Dawn, the creak of cold joints loosening, the kitchen fires below, the first footsteps, mid-morning, voices everywhere, footsteps of every kind. Noon, a brief settling. Afternoon, a different tempo, the corridors less crowded, footsteps sounding more clearly because there are fewer of them. Evening, the building of something, fires built up, candles set out, the anticipation that accumulates before a feast. Night, the stripping away, voices stopping one by one until only the building remains. Deep night, only the building, only the watch, only you if you are awake, which you sometimes are. You are awake now. You can hear the deep night. You can hear the building breathing. You can hear the watch, very faint below. You breathe with it, slow. The feast is done. The guests have retired. The great hall is being cleared. The candles are going out one by one, the light contracting, the room returning to itself. You walk through the dark corridors. You have done this walk many times. Your feet know the way. You breathe. The palace breathes. The shadow is there. But tonight it is quiet. Tonight the building is full and warm. and the wine was good, and the feast was successful, and the French ambassador seemed satisfied, and nothing has happened that should not have happened. This is a good night. You breathe slow. You are in summer. The smell of summer in a stone building is warm stone and warm people, and the particular fullness of a world that is at its most alive. Fruit from the gardens, fresh herbs, the smell of the river on warm evenings. Summer means the king hunts almost every day. The hunt returns, always. The king comes back. The horses are walked, steaming, and the palace reassembles itself around him, around the fact of him. This information spreads from the stable yard outward quickly. By the time the king has been received into his chambers, you already know, not from anyone who told you directly, from the way people are walking. You breathe. The king is back. The palace readjusts, and your evening can begin. There is a particular quality to the palace at dusk, the hour between the afternoon and the evening, the hour when the day's work is ending and the evening's ceremonies are not yet begun. The fires are being built up, the candles are being set, the hall is being arranged, but the formal activity has not started. And in this interval, the palace breathes differently, more slowly, more gently, as if gathering itself. The servants moving through the halls have the particular quality of people who are almost done, not quite done, but almost, the end of the day visible in the distance. The work ahead still to be done, but limited now, finite. You know this feeling, the particular comfort of the almost evening, when the hardest hours are behind you, when what remains is the feast, which is demanding but familiar, and then your room, and then rest. You walk through this hour with something close to ease. The palace moves around you. The fire's warm. The candles wait to be lit. The hall waits to be filled. And you breathe. You return to your room. The corridor is mostly dark now. A single torch in its bracket at the far end, the flame moving in a draft from somewhere, cast in the long shadows that make corridors like this look like something out of a dream. You open your door. The room is as you left it, small, dark, cool now that the day's heat has moved on. You sit on the edge of the bed. For a moment you just sit. This is the part of the day that is yours, only yours. No task, no performance, no calculation about where to stand and what to say and what to hold behind your expression. Just this, the room, the dark, your own breathing. You unlace your doublet. You fold it carefully and set it on the chest. Tomorrow you will need it to be ready. Tonight it rests. You lie down. The palate receives you. You are tired. The body tired of a day spent on your feet, moving through this vast building, carrying messages and counting linens and standing at feasts and walking the roads. That palace life requires of you a real tired, a good tired in its way, the kind that makes the mattress feel like something generous. Before you sleep, you do a small thing. You've done it for years. You sit on the edge of the bed and you think about tomorrow, not in detail, not the full planning of a person who maps every hour, just the shape of it, the first task, what it requires, whether there is anything you need to remember, whether there is anyone you need to speak to, whether there is anything that could go wrong, and what you would do if it did. This takes perhaps 5 minutes. It is the last act of the day's vigilance. After it, you are done. You have paid your dues to tomorrow. Tomorrow has been acknowledged. It will come whether you acknowledge it or not. But acknowledging it, giving it 5 minutes of your attention now, before you sleep, makes it less likely to surprise you. You have been surprised before. You prefer not to be surprised. The 5 minutes end. You lie down. The day is accounted for. Tomorrow is prepared for. This is now. The palate, the room, the dark. You breathe, slow. You are done. You lie still. The palace continues around you. It is never fully silent. But this late, this deep into the night, it is different. The activity is smaller. The voices fewer. What remains is the building itself, the sounds it makes when most of the people inside it are asleep, the settling of stone, the creak of old wood in the night air, the distant rhythmic sound of a guard's footsteps in the courtyard below, back and forth, the night watch, the steady pulse of the palace keeping itself. You listen, you breathe, the sounds come and go. None of them require anything of you. You are in your room. Your door is closed. Tomorrow the bell will ring, and the day will begin, and the machinery will start again. The livery, the collar, the corridor, the tasks, the watching, the careful navigation of a world that is magnificent and dangerous and ordinary all at once. But that is tomorrow. Tonight you are here, on the pallet, in the small room, in the great palace, in the year 1533, alive. The torch in the corridor outside your door casts a faint line of light under the door. You watch it, steady, just barely there. And then it dims, the night deepens. The guard's footsteps continue below, back and forth, back and forth. The palace breathes. You breathe, slow. The year outside this room is full of the things that years like this are full of. Kings and queens and counselors and the vast uncertain machinery of power moving through its changes. You are inside all of it and also separate from it here in this small room. Breathing, your hands are open, your arms are still. The palace breathes around you. 1,000 people in the dark in this building breathing. You are one of them, one voice, one breath, the guard below. Back and forth, slow, slower still. The palace breathes, you breathe. Good night. The torch is out, the corridor is dark, the building settles very slightly, as it does every night, as it has done every night for years, and will do after you. Stone settling into stone, dark, quiet, slow, slower. You breathe, still. The year is 1533. You are alive. You made it through another day. Slow. The bed. You return to it. Every night. This is the small anchor. In a life without many fixed points. In a world where the landscape can shift. Where a man's position can change between supper and breakfast. Where the very nature of the institution you serve is in the process of transforming itself. The bed is a fixed point, small, narrow, not luxurious, but yours. You lie in it, and the day arranges itself behind you. The linen store, the napkins, the count, the message carried to the senior official, the feast, the candles, the ambassador, the king's entrance, the room transforming around him, the garden in the last light, the corridors in the dark, all of it settling now, losing its tension, becoming simply what happened, the past, which cannot be changed, and therefore, in its way, is the safest place. The present is uncertain, the future is more so, but the past is done, and today is becoming past, right now, as you lie here, this moment crossing the line, becoming something that has happened, complete, finished, safe. You breathe. The bed holds you, the room holds you, the palace holds you, vast and cold and magnificent and terrible and ordinary, all at once holding you in your small room as it holds the 1,000 others in theirs. You breathe, slow, slower. The guard below, back and forth, still. Sleep in a palace is its own thing. It is not the sleep of a village where darkness falls and the day is complete, and the night is simply the night. In a palace, the night is another shift. The fires must be kept. The watch must walk. The kitchens must prepare for tomorrow. The night duty men are doing whatever the night duty men do. The palace does not stop. It changes rhythm. It breathes differently, but it does not stop. And sleeping inside this, sleeping while something large and watchful continues around you, requires a specific kind of surrender, a decision to let it continue without you. The palace will not wait for you to wake up. The palace will be doing what it does, whether you are conscious of it or not. So you can let go. You can release your share of the vigilance. The watch is awake. The fires are tended. The guards are at their posts. And you can be the one among the 1,000 who is not watching tonight. You can be the one who is sleeping fully, completely, in the small room, in the warm palace, in the year 1533, letting the building continue around you, safe, breathe, slow, slower. The room is dark, properly dark now. The line of torchlight under your door that was there an hour ago is gone. The torch has been extinguished or moved. The corridor outside is in darkness. The palace beyond the corridor is in its night configuration. Fewer people moving, slower movement. The sounds are different at this hour, no voices, just the building, the stone, the wood, the wind finding whatever small gaps it can, and somewhere, always the guard, the footsteps that return. You have listened to these footsteps on many nights. You know their rhythm, a steady pace, not hurried, not slow, purposeful. The pace of a man doing a job that matters, back and forth, the yard below, back and forth. He does not know you are listening. He does not know that his footsteps have become for you a kind of comfort, a proof that the world is still in order, that nothing requires immediate attention, that you can let go. You can sleep, you breathe, the footsteps continue, back and forth. The palace is tended. You are inside it, safe, inside the stone, inside the year, inside the dark. The building holds you the way the night holds sound, completely, without preference, without judgment. You are here, one person in one room, in one year, in one palace, and the palace holds you in the same way it holds the king, the same stone, the same dark, the same night. The difference is only in the rooms, and in the rooms right now there is only quiet and breath and the guard below, and the slow approaching of sleep, which is coming. You feel it, the weight of it, not heavy, soft, like a blanket pulled over, like a door slowly closing, like the light very slowly going out. Breathe, slow, slower, still.